Yo guys, it's JJ here, and today I'm going to be walking you through how to make some dark and emotional beats just for Little Baby. Before we get into the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We have just passed 1.5k as you can see, and we're on the way to 2k subs, so all the support is deeply appreciated. And to show some love back, I've got a bunch of free drum kits just for you, all in the description. And to get my latest one, go follow my IG in the description as well, and grab yourself that. But without further ado, let's just jump into the video. First thing to note, we are doing this at a scale of A minor at a BPM of 146. The first component of the whole sample is actually a starter from a friend of mine called David Morse, great producer. I'll show you his Instagram in the description as well. And got a pretty fire starter from him, as you can see over here. Did not change the pitch, kept it at that A minor. And as you can see, there's two components to the starter. One that I kind of use for like verse sections and one I kind of use for the chorus. So I'll just play you both of them and then we'll just stick to one sound for the rest of the video. But this is what the main melody sounds like. And there we have it. As for the effects on this, the first thing I did was get an EQ and cut off all the lows just to get rid of unwanted lows. Then I used the instance of Soothe 2 just to act as a compressor to reduce any harsher frequencies that I couldn't hear. And last but not least, in terms of effects, we have got ourselves an instance of a hollow vintage verb just to add some ambient and reverb to the whole melody. And then the last thing I did was I stereo separated the start to around 25% just to widen it within the headphones a bit, giving it a bit more of like a grand feel. And next up within the sample, we got ourselves an instance of some vocals, and yes, they are recorded by yours truly, as you can see from the little file up here. And no, I am not going to play them for you raw because they sound horrible, but if you don't feel comfortable or if you don't have a mic, you can go on Looperman, go on Reddit, grab them for free, go on YouTube and sample some vocals even, or if you have Arcade, Splice, the options are endless. But yes, I did do this myself. The first thing I actually did was, once I recorded the vocals, I pitched them up 12 semitones, and I'll walk you through the effects in a second, but this is what the vocals sound like. And there you'll have it. As for the effects, it was pretty simple and straightforward. First thing I did was grab some auto-tune just to, correct the pitch within the vocals, using the A minor scale as I said. As you can see, minor changes to the whole preset. Then I grabbed myself an instance with a Pro EQ 3 just to cut off above the lows, a bunch of the highs, and gives it like that nice kind of telephone EQ sound. I added some Fruity Delay 3 just to thicken up the vocal a bit more, as you guys could hear. And next up, we got ourselves a very, very heavy amount of Valhalla vintage verb, as you guys could see from the mix and the decay. Really well needed because we want to drown those vocals down, give a lot of room for the artist to rap rather than just hearing those vocals. And next up within the sample, we got ourselves an instance of Analog Lab 5 using a preset called the Guide V2, and this is a very nice thick bass. We already know we're in a scale of A minor, so I just followed the root notes from what I could hear in the starter, which is just the A, and then it goes on to this F and into this E, which is kind of like a normal Little Baby kind of formula, so fell right into play with this. And without further ado, this is what the bass sounds like. There we have it, no effects needed. And last but not least, for the sample, we got ourselves an instance of Omnisphere with a preset called the Ambient Space Piano, which is found within a keyboard bank. As you guys can see, very simple melody laid down, and this just acts as a counter melody at a much higher octave, as we can see, within like the 6th kind of region, just so the frequencies don't clash. And as you can see, all I did was start with the A, climb into that C, then D, and then to the E, kind of giving like a nice upwards pattern. Then I followed the same pattern for the second half, but for some variation, I got this new pattern in, which is just going up into that F, then back into the E, with a D and a C, just to kind of round it off nicely in that 8 bar. And last but not least, I clicked Alt R to open up my randomizer, and then played with this just to randomize the velocities to give it more of like a human touch. As for the effects on this sound, all I did was get an EQ, cut off all my unwanted lows, then added some Valhalla vintage verb, and got a fair bit of reverb onto it just to make it really ambient and give that emotional dark feel we want for these beats. Stereo separated the sound around around 50% to really widen it within the mix and kind of make it like a background element as well. And now without further ado, this is what a dark and emotional sample sounds like for Lil Baby. And there we have it. And now it's time for the drums. And just remember, all these drums are from my kit, the Essential Kit found on my Instagram, so go grab it for free. First of all, we are starting with the 2 good snare from the kit. Very simple pattern as we can see, and nothing crazy. And next up, we are onto the hi-hats. And yes, they do look a bit crazy, I can't lie. But it's actually just this 2-bar that I looped over and then varied it up a bit. So let me just break it down. So if we focus on this nice little 2-bar over here, first thing I did was go into my magnet tool and go into a quarter step, just so I could be ready to do whatever rolls I need. Then I go over to the paintbrush tools you can see up here, click one of the notes, and then all that does is whenever I drag notes in, they're finally in this kind of little like shape. And to break down the rolls themselves, looking at this one first, all I did was take the note from here down here, and then I just drew in this nice little roll next to it. And this is a very nice kind of roll pattern that I like to use, just having a note and then a roll straight after. Very hard. And then again, played with the pitch here, then got another roll, but this is like a half step roll, so I left a space between every single one. Same kind of quarter step roll as you can see is down here, but just played it up here, and then did another quarter step roll, but then played around with the pitch and the velocity down here. And to change the velocity, all you do is highlight your notes by controlling and left clicking, then right click down here, and as you can see, just by right clicking and holding, it adjusts the velocity for all of them, and I had it just like that, just to give it a very nice kind of spin off. And then in terms of variation for the second half, as you can see, there wasn't a note playing here, but then there's a note playing here and down here. And this roll is essentially just this one, but I just pitched it down much further. So without further ado, this is what the snare and the hi-hat sound like. And there we have it. Very nice, a bit complex for a hi-hat pattern, but these kind of things you get much better at just with practice, to be honest with you. And next up, we are onto the 808 pattern, and to look at it, it's pretty much that nice kind of bass line we had, you know, in the form of an 808. All I do is get myself this nice little pattern going for the A note. As you can see, got a nice few spaces in between to really let the artist do his thing on the beat, and because we got some complex hi-hats already, I don't want the 808 to be too hard or like too messy, so kept it quite simple. For a bit of variation, as you look down here and here, plays these 2 notes, they're gliding notes, so you just click this little glide tool and then click your note in, as you can see, and it'll have this little sign next to it. And then the next thing I did was I highlighted both of them, and then as you can see, I just turned the velocity all the way down to 0. And the reason I did that is because it gives you like a really cool like drop off glide effect, which you'll hear in a minute. The last thing I did for my 808, and this applies to my kick as well, is I click Control A, highlighting all my notes, push it down, and as you can see, if you max it all the way to the top, that's what you call maxing your velocities out. And I do this for my kick and my 808 because it makes your drums much punchier, it appeals more to artists, and it just gives you that hip hop aesthetic that you're looking for. And whilst we're at it, this is what the kick pattern looks like. It's essentially the same as the 808, but just kept all on the same note. And yes, all the velocities are maxed out too, just to give it a bit of extra punch. So without further ado, this is what the 808 and the kick sound like. And there we have it. And as I just stated before, these gliding notes, when they hit at the very end of these 4 bars, they really just add a lot of effect to the whole thing. For the final 2 patterns, first of all, we're going to start off with this nice little open hat, and all it is this nice little 2-bar looped over. But just a little heads up, these open hats are literally hitting on where 808 would be hitting, just to make it hit a bit harder, give a bit of an extra punch in the mix. We have got ourselves a nice little snare roll going on here. It looks a bit crazy, to be fair, even now that I'm thinking about it, but it's pretty simple to break down. When I made the snare roll, the first thing to know about the snare roll is when I used the magnet tool, I went onto a 6-beat, and if we look over here, it lines up perfectly. The way I started off was just doing this kind of roll here, and same roll got copy and pasted down. But then over here, I placed the same roll, but all I did was add this extra note in here, and then I chopped this note in half, as you can see. Kind of did the same thing down here, except it's like kind of the other way, so this note played first, then this roll. So I had that note here, then that roll, then I had another roll with a note, and then again, the same kind of roll here, which was the same one here. Pretty much with these rolls, again, it's about practice, but also you can reuse the same rolls, as you can see from here and there. Same with this, it's just an inverse of that, and then these 2 rolls are essentially the same as well. So without further ado, this is what a dark and emotional beat sounds like for Lil Baby. there we have it. But now to break down the whole beat structure. First of all, we begin with the starter alongside that bass. But then for the second 8-bar, I have that other part of the sample that I was talking about, introduce them vocals, and then have that nice little snare roll to lead into the chorus. Same thing again when it comes to these two starters. I have the first one and then I have the second one coming for the second half because it just makes it hit harder. The very first 8-bar, we got ourselves the essentials, which is your kicks, your 808, your snares, and your hi-hats. Then in the second half, I introduced those vocals again alongside the open hat and then that snare roll to lead into the verse. And now looking at the verse section, pretty simple. First of all, starting with the essential drums without the kick, and then have that sample playing, but only introduce it like a quarter of the way in, gives it a bit of variation. And for the second 8-bar in the verse, we use the same sample again, we're not switching it up, but I introduce the kick and then have the snare roll to lead into the final 8-bar. And this final 8-bar is known as the pre-hook or the pre-chorus because it's that 8-bar that leads right into your chorus. To make it quite dramatic, I strip all the drums, reintroduce the bass, have that little sample switch, and then have that nice little top line that wasn't played before, just to give a bit of variation within the beat. And then we got ourselves that nice snare roll to lead back into the chorus, which I just copy and pasted before, and then I copy and pasted the same thing again over here. And then for the final chorus, for the sake of variation, I added those two little like counter melodies for both sides, just to, you know, wrap it up, give it a grand finale. There you have it, a full tutorial on how to make some dark emotional beats for Lil Baby. I really hope you've enjoyed this. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.